So there's a thirst, there's a desire, there is a wondering about the brain story.
Pour moi, l'histoire du cerveau, c'est vraiment une histoire d'amour.
The brain story is needed now more than ever.
The brain story is a body of knowledge that describes how adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma can affect brain development in a way that increases the risk for mental health and substance use later on in life. It's also a set of resources that was developed by the Alberta Family Wellness Initiative to make that body of knowledge accessible to non-experts.
When I learned about the brain story, I really felt it was important for CCSA to have a role with this, to have a role in shining a spotlight on this wonderful evidence that was out there.
I didn't actually learn about the brain story until I started at CCSA and was assigned the brain story project, which is wild because I have a PhD in neuroscience, in addiction neuroscience. And amazingly, this body of knowledge was never on my radar.
And so we decided to how do we share this? How do we scale up this information and share it across Canada?
The goal of the Brain Builders Lab was to move this body of knowledge into action. So through the course, the Brain Builders had already gained the scientific knowledge itself, and the goal of the Brain Builders Lab was to spread the message and align policies and practices and perceptions of substance use with that science.
So we decided to really hold a two-day event in Ottawa, and this was, my goodness, in the spring of 2019. We really brought together the experts and the mentors to develop these initiatives, to talk through these initiatives that spread and embed the brain science in their communities. It was really about getting into practice what we know. And it's about trying to bridge that gap between what we know and what we do.
One of the important lessons is that you don't necessarily have to be a neuroscientist to make the neuroscience count. The Brain Builders have accomplished actual change. We see changes, we see increases in knowledge, we see changes in attitudes on the part of people's colleagues and people's networks.
We have found that people are very thirsty for this knowledge, and we get feedback almost immediately that light bulbs are going off, things are making sense finally, and dots are being connected in people's lives.
I had gone in with a vision that I was going to learn more about the brain, and instead I ended up learning more about the kids that I was teaching and my own responses to the stresses that are in their life.
It's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And that is the biggest takeaway that I think I took as a public health nurse working in this field for 30 years.
We're seeing actual policies beginning to change, actual practices beginning to change. Seeing all those numbers together feels really wonderful. It's proof that the kinds of activities that the Brain Builders undertook make a difference and can move the needle in ways that are measurable and in ways that matter. The Brain Builders made a difference, and I think others can make a difference too.